Hi, I'm Rosie, and today I'm going to be talking to you about different types of lung volumes in terms of what they are, their typical values, and how they appear on a spirometry graph. Firstly, I will talk about the tidal volume. This is the amount of air entering and leaving the lungs with each breath, and is approximately 0.4 to 0.5 litres. It is dynamic and dependent on conditions. For example, with physical activity, the tidal volume increases. The inspiratory reserve volume is the additional volume of air that can be inhaled at the end of quiet inspiration. This is typically 1.9 to 2.5 litres. The expiratory reserve volume is the additional volume of air that can be expired with maximum effort after a quiet expiration. The typical range is 1.1 to 1.5 litres. The residual volume is the volume of air that remains in the lungs after maximal expiratory effort. This is the only volume in the lungs that we cannot measure directly. The typical range in a healthy adult is 1.5 to 1.9 litres. The total lung capacity is the total volume of air that the lungs can contain, which should be 4.9 to 6.4 litres. The inspiratory capacity is the maximum amount of air that can be inspired after a quiet expiration. This is equal to the inspiratory reserve volume added to the tidal volume and should be 2.3 to 3 litres. The functional residual capacity is the amount of air that remains in the respiratory system after a quiet expiration. This is equal to the expiratory reserve volume added to the residual volume and should be between 2.6 to 3.4 litres. The vital capacity is the maximum achievable tidal volume. This is equal to the inspiratory reserve volume, the expiratory reserve volume and the tidal volume all added together. This should be 3.4 to 4.5 litres. Finally, the FEV1, or the forced expiratory volume in 1 second. This can be defined as the amount of air expired in 1 second and should be 80 to 90% of your vital capacity. Here I am using forced expiration to blow up this balloon. In summary, here is a spirometry graph displaying the different types of lung volumes. You have tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, the residual volume, functional residual capacity, inspiratory capacity, vital capacity, FEV1 or forced expiratory volume in 1 second, and total lung capacity. Thank you for watching. Happy revision!